obviously know there's going to be some contract questions, but not here to talk about that. Like I stated in the captaincy media availability, very happy to be a Maple Leaf. It's unbelievable privilege, but I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about the season and getting going.
When I got here, having players like Mitch and John is one of the lures of coming here. When I talked to Craig about coaching here, great players, and hopefully we're going to be great Leafs for a long, long time. But as far as worrying about any contracts, those are things that we'll handle behind closed doors. And if we have news to report, we'll report it.
How difficult is it to play in this city, in this market sometimes, and for you personally? And have you been taken aback by some of the more hostile comments that have been made about you?
I think, like I said, I've really tried to keep myself quite far away from reading any comments or anything about myself throughout this past year and even past 2 years. So really try to just stay away from it, try to just realize that every summer brings a new responsibility of just trying to get better, quicker, faster, stronger, and be the best that you can be. So I think that's where I've thought of myself.
I think he's had a great summer. I think with all the noise, you can only control so much. So I think he's put in a lot of work. He looks great on the ice, off the ice, focused, and we're all here to support him.
Well, that's in the past. I'm new here, obviously, and I've been around Mitch a bunch. He's a great person, and he's a great two-way player. He's been up for a Selke. He puts up numbers every year, and then going into the playoffs, it's building up to there. We're not there yet. I'm not gonna focus on that. I'm focusing on training camp and instilling the systems and the work ethic and the battle that's needed in camp here, and to start the regular season. And Mitch is a huge part of this team, and I'm looking forward to coaching him.
Right on, right on.
That's right. It's our brand new segment here on SportsCenter with Jay Onrait. Right on with our friend Pierre LeBrun, our TSN hockey insider. It is so great to see you, buddy. We're excited to have you on every week this season. And you just got back from Dallas. You watched your Cowboys play football. It didn't go the way you wanted. I get that. But did you at least you can't not have a great time in Big D, right?
We had a great weekend, my wife and I, our friends Paul and Jose, but let me just tell you, that game was over by the end of the first quarter, Jay. They gave us these towels, when we got to our seats, and I just wanted to wave it like the late Roger Nielsen and say, game over, we give up, It was hard. It was hard to stomach, but any given Sunday, I'm still a believer.
Yep. Hey, they're 1-1. Lots of potential. They were great against Cleveland in Week 1. So we'll talk to you a lot about the Cowboys throughout the year, but we got to talk to you about hockey because it's coming. And are you surprised at all, Pierre? Listening to Connor McDavid last week was interesting because he came out to that Edmonton media corps and essentially said, "I'll answer one question, and that's it, and I'm not talking about it." Are you surprised Mitch Marner declined to answer any questions regarding his contract status?
I mean, yes and no, because in a way, he kind of did what McDavid did in a way, which is that I'm not going to spend the whole year talking about this. A couple of years ago, Morgan Riley, his teammate, did something similar on the first day of camp. I'm not going to spend the whole year talking about this. He was entering the final year of his deal. William Nylander last year on the first day of camp, similar tact. Elias Pettersson in Vancouver last year, Jay, you may remember, said, I'm not going to talk about my contract all year until eventually that got resolved. So in many ways, it's a page from the same playbook. I guess your point is he should have at least handled it for one day. Now, it depends on how you want to handle this situation. Steven Stamkos a year ago on the first day of camp in Tampa went the other route.
Yep.
And opened his soul to the small media contingent in Tampa and talked about how unhappy he was that he hadn't been extended. And of course, you talk about foreshadowing to what was going to happen 10 months later. But, in terms of Mitch Marner, I think this is trying to handle what will be an interesting year. But can I just say one thing? The idea that, and I heard this all summer in my travels, I'm surrounded by Leaf fans. Oh, it's going to be tough. The fans are going to be hard on him. Have you been to a Leafs game in the last 10 years? First of all, when they announce the opening lineup for the home opener, half the Platinums will still be empty. Other people will be on their phones enjoying their $30 cab sauves. Come on, that is not a tough crowd when it comes to the toughest crowd in the NHL. There are great Leaf fans, passionate Leaf fans. Most of them don't go to actual Leaf games because of the cost of tickets. So just spare me this idea of how hard the crowd's going to be at home games for Mitch Marner.
I think you make an excellent point. And I thought you also brought up a great point, about Pettersson and Nylander. It was such doom and gloom in both those markets, Toronto and Vancouver, about those contract situations. And then the deals get done at one point in the year and everything's fine. Like, you heard Brad Treliving say it, Pierre. He hopes Marner's a Leaf for life. So what are your expectations in terms of what actually happens with Marner and the Leafs this season?
So the one thing that has stayed consistent throughout, and you may remember, we talked about this back in June when the speculation was wild in terms of Marner's future. And I said then, and I'll say it again because I know from checking in today, it still remains true that the plan for Marner and his camp was for him to get the camp, start the season, and then see how things go. That's it. That's as simple as it is, and that's where they are. Let's start the season, and let's see how things go. That might eventually lead to a contract extension at some point in time, or it may just be let's play the season out and see what happens. All of those things are on the table, and they always have been. And that doesn't mean that teams didn't call this summer. Of course they did, to check in what was going on, but at the end of the day, Mitch Marner always has had control 100% of this situation, and right now, it's just let's start the year and see what happens. Yes, there's ongoing dialogue between his agent, Darren Ferris, and Brad Treliving, but, that's really just about keeping the communication clean. In the meantime, everyone involved has agreed to keep a really, really tight lid on any kind of info right now. They tried, the Leafs did that to a degree with Nylander last year, but they really want to do that, and the Marner camp has agreed to do that, so we'll see where that goes.
All right, well, we'll park that for a second. Let's move on to the Edmonton Oilers and the Evander Kane situation. And Pierre, as you know, he's set to miss the start of the regular season as he undergoes surgery to address multiple injuries. He missed the last 5 games of the Cup final with a sports hernia, and he was asked why he waited to have surgery.
Obviously, I think everybody agreed we wanted to see how things looked after we took some time off to see if anything settled down, if anything could be rehabbed. I know there were some people that believed that we could possibly get better through rehab. That ended up not being the case, and then you kind of start due diligence process and trying to find the best surgeon and surgeons out there to do what they do. I felt something was off in October, or something was wrong, but it definitely just progressed over time. I'd say probably, December, January, I could start to feel things getting worse and having different effects. But obviously we knew when the playoffs rolled around that it wasn't going to get any better, and that's why I took those last couple games of the regular season off, just to try to get myself an extra week of rest.
Pierre, Evander Kane has been a very useful player for the Oilers when he's been on the ice, scoring at about a 30-goal pace in his 3 seasons there. So how will the Oilers handle what will be a significant hole in their lineup?
Yeah, especially those 13 playoff goals in his first playoffs with the Oilers in 22, right, Jay? Everyone remember that. The reality is the Oilers have been planning for this for quite a while. The only recent development for them is that he needs surgery, but they all along have been planning for him to miss the start of the year. And listen, when you talk about his hole in the top 6 or the top 9, well, certainly in the top 6, when you bring in Jeff Skinner and Victor Arvidsson, there's a couple of answers right there. I mean, the way that the Oilers are planning right now, the coaching staff, my understanding is Leon Draisaitl will probably start the year in a line with Arvidsson and Skinner, and then you got McDavid with Hyman and Nugent Hopkins, and then you got Adam Henrique with Janmark and Connor Brown. There's your top 9. No Evander Kane, but certainly some pretty good depth in that top 9 and skill, and hence the real benefit and importance of adding guys like Skinner and Arvidsson in the opening days of free agency. We'll see when he's back. The Oilers don't have a firm timeline. I don't think they're hiding that from anyone. I truly don't, until they have the surgery and talk to doctors. I don't think they know that for sure, but it's not going to be anytime soon. Maybe
the most interesting restricted free agent situation Jeremy Swayman. The Bruins will be without their goaltender when their training camp gets underway on Thursday. Swayman will not participate in Boston Bruins training camp until he has a new contract.
I'm disappointed that when you set things as a priority in a general manager spot, that you do your best to try and accomplish that, and I haven't been able to do that yet. But I will make everybody aware that some of the inconsistencies that have been reported are completely inaccurate.
What specifically inaccuracies are?
Go ahead and ask me a specific one. If you got knowledge of it, like that we haven't offered an 8-year deal, or we haven't, we're not willing to compromise, or we haven't moved on things. Like, at the end of the day, I'm not talking about specifics. You're just not gonna get it. But the fact I did reference one, as a matter of fact. I think it's bull that somebody says I wouldn't return a call for 3 weeks. That's inaccurate. Was it written? Was it said? Was it written?
That one I'm not sure.
Well, I will tell you, I don't listen to podcasts. I said my son loves biz, thinks he's fabulous. I think he's a great entertainer, okay? But at the end of the day, they're inaccurate. And that's okay, because that's all part of the business nowadays. It's okay if you turn around and say it's your opinion or your belief and such, but don't report it as fact. That's all. That's all I'm asking. I laugh because my son loves the Spit Up on Yourself podcast. And I did that on purpose, Joe, you're right. Because I'll go back to the inaccuracies of what everybody's reporting. And, it's great entertainment. It's great entertainment. But at the end of the day, it's not a lot of fact-checking going on there.
Okay. Wow. All right. That's quite something from Sweeney. Now, I got to say, this is interesting because I think when Linus Ullmark got traded to Ottawa, Pierre, I think everyone just assumed this deal would get done really fast, and yet the two sides haven't been able to come to an agreement. Any chance Boston has to begin their season without their number one goalie?
Well, let's start with the bigger picture before we zero in on this specific negotiation. The Bruins are notorious in protecting their cap culture, right? I mean, everyone couldn't believe how long it took to give David Pastrnak that contract 2 years ago, right? I mean, so they grind. Even their stars, they get grinded down. And so this is part of their culture. It's not been an easy negotiation. Having checked to both sides over the last couple of days, I can tell you, Jay, that they both maintain that the dialogue has been ongoing. There's never been a breakdown in talks, that they keep going at it, but they just have a gap to fill here. They're not in the same place, and it's hard to tell how long this will take, to find that spot. I believe both sides would like to do a long-term deal, and that's important to note. I don't think they're looking at a bridge deal right now. That could change, but right now they're still trying to hammer out a long-term deal. But this is also a contract that a lot of people around the league are paying close attention to. Guess who's RFA at the end of the season? Jake Ottinger in Dallas, who is Team USA goalie buddy of Jeremy Swayman, and those two guys are tight, and I'm sure texting each other, and and the whole goalie industry. The goalie position has kind of been under attack financially the last few years, right? You got more 50-50 job sharing. You got contracts coming down, and for a while it seemed like 5 times 5, 5 times 6 is the most that number one goalies could get the last few years. But now the cap's going up. And I think that Jeremy Swayman wants to make a fair statement, not a statement in terms of, blow everyone's socks off, but certainly I think with the cap going up, I think he's trying to get paid after the kind of year that he had and the kind of career that he has ahead of him. So really fascinating contract that will eventually get done, but one that a lot of people are keeping an eye on.
And you brought up Jake Ottinger and Dallas, and you were in Dallas over the weekend, and you weren't just there to watch your Cowboys. You actually were working for The Athletic, and you were sitting down with Stars GM Jim Nill ahead of the season. Their captain, Jamie Benn, is entering the last year of his contract. What are the plans for Jim Nill with Jamie Benn?
I should share a funny aside. I sat down with Jim Nill in his office in Frisco. The Stars practice facility, by the way, is right near the Cowboys one. It's all near each other in Frisco. And when we sat down that day, we had a nice conversation. And I asked him about Essa Lindell, who is UFA after this year, and I asked him about Thomas Harley, the RFA who hadn't signed yet. And he said in the interview at the time that he was pretty confident it would get done, sooner rather than later. Of course, by the time I got off the plane on Tuesday, both guys, as we know, had signed. So I sent Jim Nill a text saying, yeah, nice, real nice. But you know, in terms of Jamie Benn, what Jim Nill said is that, you know, he sat down with his captain this summer and he said, you know, do you want to talk extension? You know, obviously we'd be open to that. And Jamie Benn said to Jim Nill, I just want to win. I want to win a cup. Let's just get through the year and then we'll figure it out. And it just goes to show you, as Jim Nill says, that Jamie Benn just focused on one thing right now. And I should add that Jim Nill said, quote unquote, Jamie Benn will be a star for life. So they're not worried about whenever that gets done after the season. But yeah, and you know, they haven't, you know, Jamie Benn won't be making $9.5 million on his next deal. So they'll have some cap savings there. On the other hand, Jake Ottinger and Wyatt Johnston need new contracts as young RFAs next summer. So that cap better be going up, all right.
One of my favorite recent bits of reporting you've done recently was confirming that the Habs were one of the 5 teams in on Yaroslav Askarov. I was shocked, Pierre, that more teams weren't in on Askarov. He ends up going to the Sharks. So just focusing on Montreal for a second, what does their interest in Askarov say to you about where they think they are right now?
Well, I mean, listen, there were more than 5 teams that inquired, but the point of my piece Monday in The Athletic on this is that there were 5 teams that ended up being, you know, front runners, and Montreal was part of that mix. I would not put Montreal near the front of those 5. I just think that, you know, and if you're a Habs fan listening to this, you should be happy that Kent Hughes made sure to get in on it when a young potential franchise goalie like Askarov is asking for a trade and forcing his way out to Nashville. He would not be doing his job if he had not picked up the phone and tried to get in on it. And he did. He made a trade offer, is my understanding. But I don't think that what they were willing to pay certainly matched what San Jose was willing to do, and maybe not even Philadelphia or Colorado or Carolina. But you know, they made an effort. I think at the end of the day, you know, speaking to Barry Trotz, the president, general manager, the ability to get a young center like David Enstrom plus another first-round pick in that Sharks offer really kind of made it obvious where the Predators had to go with it. But, you know, I think what it says to you about the Habs is that just because they have young talent coming through the pipeline, you think of Jacob Fowler in goal, it doesn't mean that you can't keep adding to a position. This is not about not believing in what you have. It's about adding to what you have. I mean, goaltending is so unpredictable that, yeah, if a young guy like Askarov is forcing a trade and you're a rebuilding team like the Montreal Canadiens, honestly, it'd be pretty discouraging if you found out that the Canadiens didn't try to get in on that. So they did, and they didn't get him.
I gotta say, this has been so much fun, and Pierre will be joining us on a weekly basis throughout the hockey season. We're gonna be talking hockey. We're gonna be talking Dallas Cowboys. Really, anything Pierre wants to talk about, we'll chat about. It's been awesome having you on, buddy, and we will chat with you next week.
Right on, Jay. Looking forward to it all year.